So we got our basic chat going on. We see the usernames. Now, how about some user images? It would be nice if besides the username, we would also see some image of the user who sent a message. And for that, we of course need a way of adding a profile picture. To be precise, during the sign up process here, besides providing a username, it would be great if we would also have to provide an image. So that's what I'm going to work on right now. For this, let's go back to the auth screen, or to the auth form to be precise. And in that auth form, we now also want to fetch an image if the user is signing up. Of course, not during login, but only during sign up. So for that, maybe at the very top of this entire column, which I have here in the form, we can add a new widget. And that new widget could be the image preview, which we want to use. And there's a specific widget that could be helpful here, and that's the circle avatar. We can add this on top of the email text form field, and this gives us such a nice circle here in which we later can preview the image. Now it's a bit small, but we can set the radius here to change that and set it to a double. And if we set this to 30, you see this is already getting bigger, and you can play around with that value. I'll go with 40 here, I think. Let me save that. Yeah, that looks nice to me. And there I want to preview the image of the user. Now, of course, the user also needs a way of taking and setting that image, and therefore we need a button below that circle avatar. And you can, of course, go for different buttons here. I'll go for a flat button where I want to combine text and a camera icon. And there is a special constructor of this flat button, which we can use for this, the .icon constructor. This generates a flat button that has both some text as well as an icon. So here on pressed, I'll just provide a dummy function right now. And for the icon, I'll set an icon. And there we can use the image icon, for example. And for the label, we can specify a text widget and set this to add image or any text you want. Now on this flat button, we can then also set the text color, the text color to theme auth context primary color. And with all that added, you should have this nice add image button below this circular avatar. Now, of course, we need to hook this button up so that when we click it, we actually do allow the user to take or pick an image. And for this, we can use the good old image picker package, which we can use for Flutter. This is very straightforward to use. We just need to go to installing here, grab this dependency, and add this to our pubspec.yaml file. So in there, below Firebase auth, I'll add the image picker. And this will then, of course, automatically download this package and add it to our project. Now, regarding extra setup steps, there's nothing you need to do on Android, but there are some extra steps you want to do on iOS. You want to add these 3 strings or items to your info plist. And for that, if you are building for iOS, you should go to the iOS folder, then to the runner folder, and there in info plist, make sure that you do have those items. And I currently don't have them here. So I'll grab this NS photo library usage description. And we can simply add this here at the bottom and add a key field, opening and closing. And between the opening and closing key, you add this identifier. And below that, you just add a string field like this. And between the string tags, you now put the options which belong to this description. And that is the text that will be shown to the user if your app wants access to the photo library. We need access to let you pick an image, something like this. Now we can replicate this twice so that we have 3 items, because we also need the NS camera usage description, where I will show the same message. And the microphone, we shouldn't need this here, but to avoid errors, we can also add it. But since we're not going to access the microphone, you might not need this, depending on what you do in your app. So now with these keys added here, we should now be fine, and we should now have all the setup we need to use the image picker. So we can then go back to the auth form and make sure that we do pick an image if this button is pressed. Now to keep this auth form lean, I will actually grab this circle avatar and the flat button though, cut it from there and add a new widget. And I'll add it in a pickers subfolder. And in there, I'm going to create a user underscore image underscore picker.dart file, which holds a stateful widget. Stateful because this widget will actually need to update some state since we're going to manage a preview of the image the user chose. And we'll need to store that chosen image and then re-render the UI to show a preview. So here I have my user image picker widget, and I import material.dart, of course. And now in there, I want to render these two widgets which I cut. Now, rendering them side by side like this won't work though, so I'll wrap them in an extra column, which has some children, and the some children are my circle avatar and my flat button. And now we can use this user image picker in the auth form, and therefore the auth form stays lean. So here I just have my user image picker like this, and of course, in order to use the user image picker here, you also need to add this import. So with that, we have the same UI as before, but now we have a separate component that manages the image picking process, and that is always a good practice. So now here, with that image picker component, we want to make sure that when this flat button is pressed, we do open up that image picker that allows the user to use the camera or to use the image library. For this, I'll add a new function here, pick image. And on the image picker package, we also see how this works, how this package works. And that picking an image is as easy as calling pick image on this image picker object, which we get from that image picker library we added. So therefore, we need to add this import here as well. Import this image picker.dart file from the image picker package. And then here in pick image, we can call image picker.pickImage like this. And now we need to wire up pick image, of course, to this button. So here on pressed, I'll point at pick image without parentheses so that this function, this method gets executed whenever a user presses this button. Now we can define the source here, the image source, and here we got the image source enum, which actually allows us to specify the source. And here we can choose whether we want to use the camera or the gallery for taking that image. Now, if you would want to allow the user to go for either of the two, you could also open up a separate dialog before you call pick image, and in that separate dialog, you could get that user choice. Now, I will simply assume that we always want to use the camera here, let's say, but of course that is totally up to you and what you want to build in your application. So now here we call pick image, and this should open up the camera. Now pick image then returns a future which resolves to the picked file. So here I'll turn this into an async function so that we can conveniently await this future and in the end get the picked image file here and store this in this constant, in this variable here. And it's this picked image file which we then can use to show a preview. For that, here in this state, we just need to add a new variable which will be of type file, and that's the picked image underscore picked image actually. And file is a type which you need to import from Dart.io. So you can add this Dart.io import here, and this will unlock this file type. And then this is the picked image. And here we can therefore then call set state and set picked image equal to this picked image file we got from our future here. And that stores the picked image file in this picked image property. And it's this property which we now can use to show the preview. Because of course we have access to that property down there in our widget tree. And it's here in this circle avatar where you can now actually set a background image to, well, show an image in this avatar. And this background image argument here should be of type image provider. And there are various providers in Flutter. There are providers for images that come from the web, so where you have a link to the image, but there also is a file image provider. And file image simply takes the file, which holds the image, and will then basically create a connection and load that image. So here we just pass in our picked image, and that should do the trick. With that, we should be able to open the camera, save the picked image, and show it as a preview here in the circle avatar. Now you see when I save this, I get an error though, because initially, of course, my file here is null. The picked image initially is not set. So therefore here, background image actually initially shouldn't be set to anything. I will rather check if picked image is not null, and only if it is not null, I'll set it to this file image. Otherwise, I will set background image as a whole to null. So I will not pass null to file image. This would cause this error. But instead, I only load file image for this image if we have it, and otherwise set the entire background image argument here to null. And with that, it now saves and reloads without errors. And we have this empty preview here. And you could set a different background color if you wanted to. We can do this in a second. And now choose an image. And as you can tell, nothing happens here when I click this button. But instead, I get an error here. I get the error that the plugin is missing in the end. And we know this error. We can fix it by closing this emulator and simply restarting it entirely. If you add a brand new package, you often have to do this to make sure that the package is loaded correctly. So let's restart it entirely. And let's then try again. And now this looks better. It opens up this camera simulator on my emulator. And we can take a picture here, save this, and we see it here as a preview. Now, if you're trying this on iOS, you won't be able to do this on the emulator. There, you would need to test it on a real device, and we'll do that in a second as well, once we added the upload functionality. So, here's my image. Now, I will set a different background color here, for the case that we don't have an image yet. And background color simply, well, wants a value of type color. And here I will just use this gray color as a default, so that if we save this and I reload this app, so we have no picked image, we start with this gray color, but then we can pick an image, confirm this, and now we have our image. So that's great. We're able to pick an image now. Now, one problem we have here is that, of course, I only want to be able to pick an image if we're signing up, not if we're logging in. And currently, this is showing up on the login screen here. Now, fixing this is easy, however. On the auth form, we just need to make sure that, just like the username field, for example, this user image picker is only getting added if we're not in login mode. And for this, we can use this in-array if statement, where we check if we're not in login mode. So if isLogin is false, and only then this user image picker will be added. So if we do that, you see there's no image picker here, and only if I create a new account that's there. And then, of course, I can pick that image, and it should work just fine. And of course, we also, thanks to the scrollability we added earlier, can add our other fields. So this is now working. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is that this image should get uploaded, of course.